Okay, everybody, this is Gordon West. He's going to be our, for lack of a better word, instructor tonight. He's going to be talking about emergency communications. He's been a ham operator for 50 years, holds a top amateur extra class ham radio license, along with a first class general radio telephone certificate and radio endorsement. He is the leading ham radio educator in America, and he was named Instructor of the Year by the AARL. And in 2006, the Amateur of the Year by the Dayton Amateur Radio Association. So everybody have a big hand for Gordon and let him get started. Thank you, Gordon.
All right. Well, thank you. And I see silent hands. That's okay. That is quite okay. Well, you know, ham radio has really sort of saved a lot of us during the last 4 months. It keeps us constantly in touch, keeps us learning new skills, whether it's Zoom or all of the different aspects of meeting in person. This past weekend, they had the QSO Today Ham Expo, and I understand they had just under 20,000 that attended with about 23,000 registered. And it was really fun to go into a virtual ham radio booth and a virtual chat room and virtually see all the exhibits. And I enjoyed it because it really let me look at all of the different radio things. I mean, every good ham has got to have one of everything, right? Well, we know very well that ham radio bridges the gap when it comes to communications, and everybody's having to distance themselves during this terrible pandemic. But ham radio comes through because it's part of our rules. It's our dedication. In fact, the FCC in Rule 97.1 A says that we are the ham radio service, particularly with respect to providing emergency communications. So tonight I thought I would give you different bands and different frequencies and let you listen to what are real live emergency calls coming over ham radio, and we'll gain some skills on this because at a point in the talk we're going to let you decode some of the stuff coming through. First of all, we go to the 2-meter band. We go to some brand new operators on an island 26 miles across the sea from Southern California, Catalina. And these brand new operators, members of a CERT team, ones that I had trained in a class, a month after they got their license, they were handling calls that sounded like this.
KI6 MSI, Tango Shelter Delta. Fire is spreading over to Country Club Drive rapidly. 5 homes are in immediate danger. We need evacuation now of these homes.
Now, didn't he sound just, you know, real calm and relaxed? Well, that was hopefully good training he learned from some technical operating skills that we did afterwards. Here comes one of the fire chiefs as third-party traffic.
Copy that. Be advised that the Sheriff's Dispatch is activating the CERT team at this time for the evacuations, and the water company has been notified. Also, Public Works.
Wow. So, and as I recall, when I was up there a year ago, there were some members of the Benicia Amateur Radio Group that were also CERT members. So Community Emergency Response Team plays an important part. And as hams, we try and embrace those that enjoy working their little ham radio, their little family radio service radios, almost like ham radios. Well, here's a call that always deserves the highest priority, and that's the break.
Break. 4 homes on Country Club engulfed in flames. We require further resources, and we still have no water pressure at this time. Sherrill County Fire copy. Resources from the original fire ground are being redeployed to those areas. Helicopters are incoming to make water drops on those structures.
Wow. So you can see, even with just a small little 2-meter handheld or a dual band, it's just as capable of carrying communications over short range to handle big problems. But now we go to high frequency. We're going to tune into the 20-meter band. And this was about 12 years ago on one of the country's largest hurricanes to hit the Gulf, and it's Katrina. And listen to this ham operator trying to stay cool when conditions were getting a little rough.
Roger, we had about 3 inches of rain since last night. About 3 inches of rain since last night. We don't have any electricity. The whole block is out. And the winds, I'm estimating, we're gusting up over 50. We have broken branches lying around. And I wanted to say, I'm at 29.
Wow. He sounded pretty calm with winds gusting over 50 miles an hour. But, you know, they had no electricity, they had no internet, and all they had was ham radio. Then this call comes in from the National Weather Service. Listen to this report.
Okay, I'm getting a report from Alpha Delta 5, Delta Papa, that the National Weather Service in Slidell has lost all HF radio operations. Over.
Yeah, they lost all HF operations. Hams drove in with their vehicles and those monster antennas that we all marvel at, and they set up and started operating with the National Weather Service and getting those calls through. But as the night wore on, things got more tense. We went to 40 meters, and here is our call on 40 meters with Katrina just touching in on shore.
Roger, because he's losing trees, going down at this time.
Now, you'll notice at 40, the signal to noise level was making it pretty hard to hear the call, but that's 40. And then that next morning, still on 40 meters, everybody was thinking that, well, New Orleans was spared, but take a listen to this.
New Orleans is shut down. New Orleans has got major destruction, and they've got the roof off the Superdome. They've got water in the business district. They've got, you probably know better from the national TV coverage than we do. We have no TV. All we have
all we have is ham radio. And that was well stated, where we could understand the absolute devastation that New Orleans had with Katrina. Finally, all of these major hurricanes, even those coming up, and we've got one right now heading up the coast of Baja California, and the hams are relaying calls, but there's always a good ham radio control operator. And listen to the skill of this control operator explaining to folks that were all upset because somebody was taking over their frequency for their rag chew. He made it pretty clear that they needed the frequency for the National Hurricane Center to get.
We are transferring information to the National Hurricane Center, and that helps the forecasters to predict landfall and tracking of the hurricane. Okay, so with that said, are there any stations on the southwest coast of Florida that have hurricane strength winds?
Well, that net control operator cleared the frequency, and he did it in a very polite way rather than getting in a quarrel with somebody that claims it's their frequency. Remember, on ham radio, it's everybody's frequency, and those that have priority or emergency traffic always have the highest priority. Well, let's go back to a sunny morning on 2 meters in New York City. And at first, we couldn't understand what was going on. And then the radio call came in that gave chills for everybody and a look downtown.
The World Trade Center, tower number 1 is on fire. The whole outside of the building, there was just a huge explosion. We have a number of floors on fire. It looked like the plane was aiming towards the building. Transmitted third alarm. We'll have the staging area at Possessing and West Street. The third alarm assignment goes into that area. The alarm assignment report to the building.
It was a little hard to hear all of the calls coming in at once, but the American Red Cross across the river in New Jersey were right there. They had ham radio operators. They dispatched them via boat across the river into the city, and the hams were there to handle emergency traffic at the different hospitals, hoping that a lot of folks get out of it. But as you know, not many did. So the hams were there pretty much just to handle health and welfare traffic. And who would have thought they had an earthquake on the East Coast? Well, remember that earthquake in Washington, D.C.?
Horizontal motion lasted approximately 10-15 seconds. Very light. Over.
Well, it was very light, but it did a lot of damage to the National Monument and others. So earthquakes happen on the other side of the city, all the way across the country, all the way to Washington, D.C. And of course, we have earthquakes right here in Southern California. And by golly, you're at the other end of the big chain of earthquakes. And well, take a listen to this one when we had an earthquake in Los Angeles and what it does to our freeways. We've had some recent San Andreas Faults activity, and the San Andreas Fault starts here at the Salton Sea and ends up right where we are up there in the Bay Area. Take a listen to this call.
KD6MVD for a damage report on a freeway. VD, go ahead with the damage report on freeway. Roger, 4 miles north of damage on the 405. There's quite a bit of buckling in 2 different places and a lot of concrete up there, so you got to go through there real slow.
Wow, that was a pretty good report. Who would have thought that earthquakes would have brought down some of the side freeway pieces of cement, but it certainly did. Well, here was a call that came in even earlier than that, and we'll give you 2 shots to hear. The lady is asking the gentleman what the location was and what the problem was, and it was a big...
Freeway 10, and what section? That will be eastbound and westbound near Washington. The bridges are down.
What? The bridges are down. Take a listen.
Eastbound and westbound near Washington. The bridges are down.
Holy smoly. Well, there was ham radio first on scene watching bridges over the Santa Monica Freeway falling to the deck during the big earthquake that we had down here in Southern California. So one never knows how ham radio is going to play. And again, that was on 2 meters. The 222 band and the 440 band were also carrying earthquake reports.
They said that the quake was felt first in Westchester, then it was felt a few seconds later in Thousand Oaks.
Oh, now think about that. Earthquakes travel at not the speed of light. Radio waves do. So talking to a ham and they goes, oh my gosh, feel that. This other one about 3 or 4 seconds later goes, whoa. So there's always a delay, and if someone ever calls you 100 miles away saying, hang on, Benicia, you're going to get some earthquake activity, it might be 5 to 10 seconds before you feel it, because the earthquakes do not move near as fast as radio waves.
From 80 meters, WD60 the El Segundo station. That's WD60 at HL Segundo, located next to Westchester. East to west.
Well, that was a good report, and he reported the jolts from east to west. Then additional reports came in, and at the end of this report, well, take a listen. You'll hear.
In Long Beach, it lasted several seconds. We had a couple things fall down, and the bird went crazy.
The bird went crazy. You know, during emergencies, one needs to ensure that you've got good command of the frequency if you're net control, and to try and keep everybody just sort of slow down and let's go ahead and pass the traffic. So he added that his bird went crazy.
Wow. Well, this is started on that down here for years, sort of an east-west, but some vertical motion. And there was two peaks, a little bit at first, then a big peak, and then it almost died down, and it hit us harder for the second time.
So we hope that all of us, you up there in the Bay Area and Suzy and I down here in Southern Cal and all the other hams, that we don't have any more earthquakes coming out of the Salton Sea. But if you're on high frequency tomorrow morning on the California Rescue Net, and I know many of you are on the net, we want to ensure that if we say, uh-oh, we got a big one, you've got about a minute before it'll get up there to the Bay Area, maybe a minute and a half. So you never know. Well, we had the warning from Japan when they had their earthquake. And indeed, as you know, that earthquake generated a tsunami that came all the way here to the West Coast. But listen to what the folks in Hawaii are saying. You know things are not good down at the beach when you're there and your ankles are just being lapped up with nice, cool beach water. And then all of a sudden the water goes out. I mean, it goes out a quarter mile. It's going to come back in, and that's what the big report was from a Hilo, Hawaii ham on 40 meters.
Just an update from the Big Island of Hawaii. It's been reported that the water is receding in Hilo, too, on the breakwater, as well as at a couple of the beaches. So I just passed the information along. I'm on the southern end, and that's the report from Hilo, Hawaii. That's the net, H6RC.
So we have hams literally all over the country, all over the West Coast, listening to our California Rescue Net every morning at 8:30, and many of you are on that net, and it's good to hear you. But we're always aware to stand by and take traffic, because some of it could be a tsunami that has been generated that we might not have known about. Luckily, you're okay up there in Benicia, but down here along the West Coast where Gordon and Suzy are, we're real close to the water. So there you go. Well, now let's go back to the 2-meter band. And here's another radio group that is working a remote area on it's a marathon over some very rocky grounds. And they come upon this. Take a listen.
Oh my gosh, there's a school bus with kids on it, and it's like 50 yards south of Falls Canyon on Avalon Canyon Drive.
Report from ham operators at scene on the number of patients that might be involved. At Control Fire, would you check with our hospital resources and advise them of the number of casualties and be advised?
Wow. So as you can tell, the very first report came over ham radio, 2 meters. Now, when we have major incidents at a scene, many times hams will report to the local hospitals. And as I recall, when I was up there in your neck of the woods, we met once at the fire station and once at a wonderful church facility. The hospitals usually have a ham, and the ham is there to take down traffic. And of course, with any ham radio call to a hospital, you may need to spell things, and we always spell things phonetically. And we know most of you, hopefully all of you know, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta. The old police ones were Able, Baker, Able Boy, I forget what they are. And there were even phonetics before then. But take a listen to the importance of phonetics and knowing the phonetic alphabet when you're trying to read a prescription label.
We've got need some medication for one of our CHAP car victims and want to know if you have 5 milligrams of amlodipine acetylate. I spell.
5 milligrams of what? Luckily, he says, I spell. That means immediately get out your writing tool, and as a good net control operator and a good ham at your base station, always have paper, have pen, even if it's a giant one like this, and be ready to copy. Here we go.
Alpha, Mike, Lima, Oscar, Delta, India, Papa, India, November, Echo. Next word, Bravo, Echo, Sierra, Yankee, Lima, Alpha, Tango, Echo, 5 milligrams.
Oh, boy. Thank goodness for the phonetic alphabet on that particular one. Well, this bus accident, as the hams were beginning to work getting the kids off the bus, they discovered that the bus had collided with a car.
The bus collided with a car that we just discovered halfway down the hill at Falls Canyon and Avalon Canyon. It is overturned on the south side of Avalon Canyon Drive. 2 occupants are trapped. We need the jaws of life. Both occupants are alive but severely injured. W6GLF.
Ah, you ladies of Benicia, when you're on the air, your voice always comes through just as crystal clear as she was. And again, cool, calm, and collected, not screaming in the mic, but just doing a great job. Now, our ham at the hospital was reporting this.
Hospital is near capacity with ER teams still able to take unrelated cases.
Wow. Well, that's important to know so that they can take them to a local hospital rather than having to go for a helicopter ride that will be very expensive. Earthquakes all over the world affect all of us, and imagine the chills that we all got when they indicated that there was a tsunami and there were about 800,000 folks homeless after the tsunami. Oh, wow.
Sri Lanka reports 31,000 casualties with ocean waters covering all southern and eastern coastlines. The estimate is 800,000 homeless and in need of medical supplies. Ham radio operators needed immediately with high-frequency radios.
So again, ham radio comes to the rescue in Sri Lanka several years ago with that huge tsunami. More locally on the East Coast, Hurricane Sandy, remember that one? It didn't look like she was going to do much, but she sure did. Hurricane Sandy had some pretty strong winds.
The hurricane will reach the coast early on Thursday. Maximum sustained winds are near 135 miles per hour with higher gusts. Some fluctuation in intensity are possible.
And you know, it wasn't so much the wind or the rain, but rather it was the storm surge. And I was there right afterwards, work on some comms, help out, and you should have seen the water pouring into the subways from the storm.
And your storm surge is greater than 6 feet and hard to measure. QSL?
As you know, tonight I've got to jump out at 7 o'clock because I work with the U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary. And Coast Guard Auxiliary members have alternate frequencies just above or just below our normal ham bands, so your normal antenna should be able to help them. But take a listen to this call that one of our Coast Guard Auxiliary members was handling for
The Coast Guard was sending somebody in there as soon as they could expedite that. Roger?
So there's a relay from one ham regarding the U.S. Coast Guard, and then it gets more ominous. Take a listen to this.
I want the net to know that the 21 people at Fair Street has been received by the Coast Guard, and they are acting on it. No calls on that one. That is done, Dave. Right.
Well, that was good news that they were able to help. And finally, they needed more ham.
Anybody in New Orleans can report or get some action for these people stuck on the roof. That was the request from Net Control.
Yeah, don't you hate it when you've got to get some action? Here was a call from FEMA. They came on a ham radio frequency with their commercial emergency radio setup, NTIA frequencies, but they came up on 14,300. One ham was saying, FEMA, you can't, and they immediately said 97 dot, and they gave them the part number about in an emergency. Anybody can come up on any frequency to seek help. So here's the FEMA tremendous.
Yeah, if anybody in New Orleans can help these people, is there anybody I can relay? I heard somebody coming out.
So that was one of the FEMA calls. Well, after the big Katrina or after any major hurricane, there's always a call for generators and...
Yankee 960, was that you or the FEMA van? Come now, over.
Sorry.
Tell the crews that come, if they're coming to work on the towers, that they will need generators and fuel for the generators. And basically, they're in essence hitting the beach with no facilities to support them. No facilities to support them. Recommend they bring all of their own food and all of their own creature comforts. QSL.
Wow. So when you get deployed to a biggie, sometimes you will need to bring everything for creature comforts just to keep you safe as well. So those were some of the audio recordings that over the years I've accumulated. And I always have recorders running during emergency calls, and you never know. So I encourage all of you, as I've seen your setups at the Benicia gatherings, to have a grab-and-go kit, to have batteries charged up and ready to roll. I'm a big fan of the lithium iron phosphate batteries from BioInno, and right now they've got them 10% off if you just mention Gordo or Benicia Amateur Radio Club. BioInno, BIOENNO. This is a 12-amp BioInno battery. And this battery I use when I'm doing a lot of microwave work and so on, because it only weighs a couple of pounds, but it's 12 ampere hours, and it's about 1/3 the weight of what a exit alarm battery would have of the same amperage. And lithium iron phosphate has built-in protection circuits, so that if one cell should ever go bonkers, or if you overcharge it or undercharge it, it's looking out for you, and it will either take the batteries out of line, and to reset them, you simply plug in the 12 volts and it'll come back. And they have some larger ones that are 20 amps that I use when I'm out for several days. And I even have in our communications van a big 100 amp BioInno. And the nice thing about these batteries is, unlike a gelled battery or a sealed lead acid battery, the BioInno lithium iron phosphate batteries have individual cells, and they purposely have those cells rest at a nominal voltage of 14.3, not 12.7, not 13.2, but 14.3, and that makes it ideal to keep your HF single sideband radio happy and not FMing and distorting on transmit. So that's my story at this end of the work. I'm looking at my watch, and I've got to get back to my Coast Guard net, but I hope to hear many of you on high frequency tomorrow morning. And I just want to say thanks to all with the Benicia Amateur Radio Group for having us last year and a couple of years before that at the fire station. And I salute all of you for the hard work you're putting in and being prepared for any emergency that's hopefully not around the corner. So let me go back to our net control on Zoom, and I'll let you say a few words, and then I'm going to duck out of here and put on my nautical hat for my Coast Guard Auxiliary. Go ahead.
Well, thank you, Gordon. This is Michael Koch, W06Y. I'm here on location at Richard Chan's, but I really want to thank you. You've done, as usual, a yeoman's job, as we say in the Navy.
So, thank you, Michael, and thanks for having me on board. And oh no, it's not me. It's all that your club members are doing to keep ham radio pertinent to your community and up front. And when the big one hits, I know we can count on you. So thanks again for having me on board. And I'm sorry I've got to go, but duty calls. 73 all.